Today, I am joined by the fabulous Cerezo, a menopause advocate, health coach, speaker, and educator who's on a mission to help women navigate perimenopause and menopause with confidence instead of confusion. After spending 17 years as an educator, Karen experienced firsthand just how unprepared women are for this stage of life. That journey inspired her to dedicate her career to educating women, empowering them to advocate for themselves, and helping them thrive through evidence-based lifestyle strategies. In this episode, we unpack the symptoms no one warns you about, why so many women feel dismissed when they seek answers, how menopause affects everything from your health to your career, and the simple, practical steps you can take to feel the best through every stage of the menopause transition. If you've ever caught yourself thinking, why didn't anyone tell me this? You're not alone, and this conversation is exactly what you need to hear. This is one of those episodes that has the power to completely change the way you think about menopause. So grab a notebook, settle in, and let's revolutionize the way we think about women's health, because thriving through menopause should never be left to guesswork. Welcome back to the Mind Body Revolution podcast. I am your host, Coach Cece, and I am here with the fabulous Karen Cerezo, menopause expert, advocate, all things to help women live their best life as they move through the later phases. So Karen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about this.
Awesome. This is going to be such a great episode. So many women are going to benefit from. And Karen, you have kind of a unique story because before you became a menopause advocate, you were actually in the world of education. What did that period of your life look like, and what led you to moving into the menopause space and the health coaching space?
I did teach middle school for 17 years, and I would say for 16 of them, they were really amazing. And the last year was pretty rough. And I say a lot of it is because of just, some of the changes we had with education in general, the leadership of our particular school. But looking back and not knowing, I also feel like my hormones were driving a lot of the decision to leave the teaching world. And it's eye-opening now, the whole hindsight 2020. But back then I never connected the dots, right? So I left teaching school to basically teach health, wellness. I became a certified fitness trainer. I became a certified health coach, a certified nutritionist. And so my classroom just looked a little bit different. My students looked a little bit different, but I was still in the world of education, which I've always loved. And so it just made sense to move over to that. I wanted other women to feel better. And I knew that I needed this for my mental health, but also for my physical health. So it was a big transition, but it ended up being absolutely amazing.
Awesome. Now, you say a lot, and we'll talk about this as we go through everything we're going to talk about today. But you say a lot that nobody prepared you for this stage of your life. And I am sure there's a lot of women out there who feel the same because they're either in perimenopause now or they're getting ready for it and they're just not sure what is coming. When you look back, what was it that you wish that you knew before that stage of your life started?
I wish I had known to listen to my body more. There was a lot of clues that I wasn't putting together. I was just thinking it was motherhood, it was the job I was in, it was stress, it was that season, whatever it was. But my body really was giving me signs and clues of things that it needed and some adjustments I needed to make. But because we didn't know anything about it, we didn't know what symptoms were related to this, I never put that together. So had I known that, it probably would have been a smoother transition from the very beginning instead of trying to do a lot of like CSI work, right? Putting all of these puzzle pieces together and trying to figure out what in the world, why am I feeling so completely different than my normal self all of the sudden? Why are things that used to work in the past are not working now? And I had no idea. And so I think being able to just have a little bit more clarity would have really made a huge difference.
Absolutely. And a lot of women, they don't even really know where they are, right?
Yeah.
So we use the term menopause as interchangeable, but we who know about it know that it's not. And the easiest thing to compare it to, I think, is when people say, I want to lose weight. And in reality, they want to lose fat.
Yeah.
So when we talk about menopause, it's not just menopause, it's perimenopause, it's postmenopause, all bringing different things to the table. Can you kind of explain to us what is the difference between perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause?
Yeah, I think that's an important one, and I think it's such a disservice that we have this big umbrella term of menopause. And we've heard the word menopause, right? I mean, growing up, we've heard the word, whether it was a joke on a sitcom or maybe your mother mentioned it or your grandmother mentioned it or whatever, but it was just mentioned in passing, right? It was just basically when women got really old, they went through this thing called menopause. And it wasn't until I started talking to my mom and I was like, I am struggling with all of these things. Like, literally, I went from head to toe and told her, like, all of these things that were changing in my body. And she said, well, it sounds like you're in perimenopause. That is the first time I had ever heard that word in my life. And I always tell my mom, you know what? Shout out to you, mom, for knowing that word,
Right?
but why had we never talked about this, right? So then I started reading books and doing, going, listening to podcasts. And of course, the only podcasts I can find, this is like 8, 9 years ago, the only podcasts I could find were in Australia or the UK. There was really nothing going on in the US, right? And so I'm buying all these books and I finally just started going online and talking about, do y'all know that there's like this whole season that leads up to menopause? Which of course nobody knew. And I just started sharing my story of getting my blood work done and conversations with my doctor and being blown off by my doctor and treatment options I was trying and supplements and how I was changing my workout. And so I was very surprised to hear that there was all of these terms that we had never heard about before. So menopause is a nice umbrella term, right? Leading up to actual menopause, we are in perimenopause. And this is just kind of those that we're just pre-gaming is ultimately what we're doing. This is when our hormones start to fluctuate, our cycle starts to change. It might get shorter, longer, heavier, lighter. It really depends on the woman, right? And then we start to get those symptoms, and it could be itchy ear, dry skin, joint pain. I noticed like my workouts totally changed. I couldn't lift heavy anymore. I was struggling with running just because of endurance. And then on top of it, the joint pain added to it. Our sleep changes, our gut health changes. I mean, there's just this list, right? And it's because our hormones are fluctuating, they're not able to communicate with one another. And we have these hormone receptors throughout our whole body. And when they stop communicating, things start glitching. And that's where we start to feel these aches and pains and these changes and these things that you're like, I've never felt this before. Why is this happening? You can start perimenopause as early as your mid 30s. And we are seeing next generation, our millennials are starting a little bit earlier than Gen X, our boomer generation. And there could be a ton of factors that boil into all of that. But most women start approximately 40-ish, mid 40s. We're usually in perimenopause several years before we even notice what's happening, right? We chalk it up to motherhood, stress, work, whatever it is. And then you could be in perimenopause a good 8, 10, 15 years, right? We don't actually get to menopause until we have gone 12 consecutive months without a cycle. And I cannot tell you how many women I have talked to that are like 11 and a half months. Okay, here I am. I'm almost there. And then all of a sudden they get a period again. And for some, that's joyous because they're not ready to go into menopause yet. For some, it's devastating. And so when we hit that 12 consecutive months, we are in menopause. It is literally one day of our life. And then the next day we go into postmenopause. And we have to understand that postmenopause, we're going to be there for the rest of our lives. So if we think about this journey, if we start perimenopause 40, we live to be 80. We are in this menopause transition for a good 40 years. That is half of our life. And so we're navigating this without any information. And it's literally half of our life trying to figure out how to stay healthy and active. And, how do we have a high quality life when all of these things are changing and nobody's given us information on how to work with it? And so it's important that we understand that all three phases are that there's keys to all of them, and how we approach them is a little bit differently.
So you said something there with the symptoms that kind of made me laugh because when you think of symptoms of menopause, you think hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, you know, your libido packed up and didn't tell you where it was going.
Yes.
But you said itchy ears. So, what are some of like the lesser known symptoms that women may experience that would have no idea that it's related to menopause?
Yeah. I have a lot of women, it's funny, they're like, "I can't be in menopause because 1, everybody thinks I'm too young," and I'm like, nope, not necessarily." Or 2, they're like, "But I'm not having hot flashes." I think I've had like 5 hot flashes the whole time I've been going through this.
Wow.
So, hot flashes are not necessarily, the indicator that you are in perimenopause. When I first started talking about this, we always talked, 7, 8 years ago, we talked about the 40 most common symptoms. And now, depending on who you research, who you follow on social media, what books you read, there's really between 70 and 120 symptoms linked to menopause. And
Holy
so,
smokes.
I mean, we're talking, frozen shoulder. We're finally starting to understand that that's connected to menopause. A lot of people didn't realize that. Plantar fasciitis is one as well that we haven't made that connection. As our estrogen decreases, the padding of our feet change. And so
Okay.
that changes. And of course, people are like, oh, I never put the two together. Changes in our microbiome. So our gut health is changing. Itchy ear, itchy eyes, dry mouth is one that I still struggle with. It drives me crazy. I would get itchy ears a lot, but then I started getting really bad vertigo. Vertigo is also a symptom, and it's because the estrogen that is a protector in our ear, it lubricates the little hairs in our ears, that gets thrown off. So all of a sudden now we're struggling with vertigo. Joint pain, I think we're talking about that a little bit more than we have before. Incontinence, anxiety, depression. You did touch upon the mood swings, that rage. Another one I think more people are talking about is the feeling of we talk a lot about the I don't care feeling, but it's really just this feeling of meh. Like I have no feelings, right? I'm just ambivalent about all of it. And I have definitely talked to my doctor. I'm like, listen, I know I'm not depressed, right? But I definitely feel blah all day long. I don't care if I see my kids. I don't care if I go outside. I don't care if I take a shower, if I put on clean pants. I don't want to live my life that way, right? And so that's a big one. A lot of people are like, I don't understand this feeling of just not wanting to participate in my own life. And that was a big one for me. I'm like, y'all, I have like main character energy. Like, I just can't be sitting back there doing nothing. And so, talking to my doctor, she's like, well, let's talk about increasing your estrogen. That made a huge difference in my mood and wanting to participate in my own life again.
Yep. And when you talked to your doctor, did you find the conversation was easy to have, or did you feel it was more a glossed over, let's just give you the canned answer, you're probably tired, you're just getting older?
When I talked to my PC, I got a lot of, well, let's just kind of wait it out and see. And let's just, it was a hemming and hawing, and she was a female, right? She's not super young, but I mean, she was female. She knew about menopause to a certain degree, but she didn't seem very concerned about how it was affecting my life. And like it was affecting every day, right? It wasn't just a little thing that I could get through once in a while. It was literally affecting me every single day. And so then when I talked to my OBGYN, she was definitely more versed on menopause education. Her go-to was definitely more of a sales tactic than it was a solution for me specifically. And so, of course, I did that and I started to feel really good. But the more research, I was like, this isn't really solving what I need for my individual journey and my goals for my body and my daily life and my health. And so finally I had to go out of my insurance out of pocket, which is what a lot of women find they have to do. And finally had somebody that listened to me and created a plan specifically for my symptoms and how I wanted to feel and the things that I wanted to address, not what they wanted to address. And so it's common for women to see between 5 and 7 doctors before they get anybody to actually listen to them and really focus on what it is they need specifically. And it's hard to do it with insurance just because there are so many stipulations on things. You'll get like, women will tell me, my OBGYN will see me, they'll do my pap smear, my yearly, but then I have to come back for a whole nother appointment on menopause because it's different coding. We can't have it at the same time. And so you feel like you're just going back and forth. And so that part's really hard. And then of course, if you want HRT, some HRT is covered, not all HRT is covered. And so you have to pay out of pocket and you have to get a different, prescriptions. And it is a lot of footwork for women. And so it's frustrating. And that's why a lot of women don't get the help that they need. They finally just throw up their hands, or they just don't have the right connections of who they need to get involved with. I always tell people, check out the menopausesociety.org. You can put in your zip code. You will find out who in your area is a certified menopause specialist. So that's one way. But talk to your friends. I cannot tell you how many people just post on Facebook groups like, hey, I need a provider that's going to talk to me about my hormones, or I need a menopause specialist. And women are finally just putting this out there and not caring if people are going to be, judging or like, oh my goodness, she's in menopause. We're all here to help each other. And I think that's one of the greatest things that has come out of this part of menopause with Gen X is we're not going to be silenced, and we are definitely going to link arms and do this together and support each other and provide as much information to each other that we can.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that so many women, we pay into insurance, we have these plans, and then they're not even servicing all the needs that we have. And to your point, going out of pocket, I've done that as well to address different health issues with me, gut health issues, things like that. And it's not cheap. And it really does take you as the individual, you as you, me as me, making those steps, because our physician's not telling us to do that.
Yeah.
And one of the quotes that you had in your TEDx talk that I highly recommend every woman watch, we're going to link it down in our show notes. You said self-advocacy is no longer optional, it's survival. Can you expand on that, why you feel that's the case now, and how can we help women become better advocates for themselves so they can finally get the answers they need and stop just spinning their wheels?
I think because we as women have just kind of pushed through so many, I don't know, it's not every one to say issues, but we have pushed through so many issues related to women's health, right? When we got our period at 8 or 12 or whenever it was, we pushed through, right? We showed up to work. We had to go to PE. We had to do all those things. We just pushed through. Same thing when we were going through fertility treatments, maybe we still had to show up. Right? So we just pushed through the awkwardness and the uncomfortableness and the sickness that comes with it during pregnancy, during postpartum, whether we're breastfeeding or we're bottle feeding, nursing, whatever it is, pumping, we're just pushing through constantly and making things work. Unfortunately, when we start to go through menopause, it's really hard to make things work because our hormones really are driving so much of what's happening. And we are already struggling with issues related to age, right? We're already going to have that natural decline, and then add on top, all of a sudden your hormones are depleted. When we do not address the lack of hormones, our chronic disease risk skyrockets. So our hormones, specifically our estrogen, but also our progesterone and testosterone, and so, there's 8 key players I always talk about, but our 3, sex hormones that we refer to all the time, those protect our brain, it protects our heart, it protects our bones. So when we are in postmenopause and all of that bottoms out, now we have this increased risk of cognitive decline. We have this increased risk of cardiovascular disease. We have an increased risk of osteoporosis. And now it makes sense understanding why this affects women at such a higher rate than men. All 3 of those, right? It affects women at a much higher rate than men. Well, it makes sense. We weren't given the hormones in the past because of the research that was out there. So I always talk about, I'm so curious to see in 15, 20 years, now that we have this generation that is having hormones offered to us, whether we choose to take them, that's a personal thing, but at least they're being offered now. They're not being silenced. They're not being shunned. They're not, it's not taboo to talk about it anymore. I'm curious to see in 10, 15, 20 years, do we see a decrease of women having osteoporosis? Or is cardiovascular disease going to stop being the number one killer of women, right? Are we going to
Yep.
see that we are not the top when it comes to cognitive decline? And so this is why it's so important that we get the help that we need, that we advocate for ourselves, because it really does increase our risk of chronic disease, which means we won't have that high quality life. We're going to struggle with these things that we don't necessarily see that men are struggling with.
Yeah, and I think it's important that menopause plays into so many other factors. And this is a very, we'll call it a pinnacle, if you will, of women's lives where this phase, done correctly or incorrectly, is going to set the path for the rest of your life, however long that is, depending on which path you choose.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. And I wish so much that my grandma was still alive, because I would have loved to have heard more about her journey now that I know to ask those questions. And I didn't know that before. But it is very interesting as to what they suffered through and how their lives could have been maybe a little bit easier.
Yep.
They could have had a higher quality of life. They could have been more comfortable and been able to do more than what they were able to do. And so I'm excited to see where we are as we go through this process, and, what old age looks like for Gen X versus, past generations. But it is at this point, it's no longer just a benefit that you're advocating for yourself. It is literally, how are you going to survive this next season?
Yep. Yeah. And just not only survive it, how are you going to thrive through it?
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah.
do want
Which is
the
what we want
best.
to do. We want to feel good.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm fine. I don't care what the number says on the calendar. I want to feel like I'm 30 when I'm 60,
Yeah.
and not have that struggle.
I don't necessarily need to have like these huge goals of I want to climb, the biggest mountain or whatever. I just want to be able to travel, and I want to be able to get off the couch, and I want to be able to do my own grocery shopping if that's what I want. I want to be able to shower by myself unassisted. And so it's little things like that. I mean, yes, of course, we want these big, amazing goals to do, but sometimes it's just the little things of having a high quality life. I always tell people it is really expensive to have assisted care or assisted living. It is so much cheaper to a certain degree to live on your own. So if you can live on your own for a longer period of time and be in your own home and take care of yourself and not have to pay somebody else to do that, and it's so much freedom, right? And that's really ultimately what we want. And so to me, that's what thriving looks like.
Yep. Yeah, not having that, you have to have the help in the dependency. You're still able to, come and go as you please, do the things you want to do, and not miss out on all the things you now have time for because you're older, right? And your priorities are
Right.
different, your obligations are different. And if your health's not there to do it with you, does it really matter if you have the time?
Right, right. Doesn't matter that you're just still around. You're just sitting on the couch. Yeah, I want to be able to get up and go, dancing with my girlfriends at the 80 or whatever it is, and just be able to be silly and enjoy life as pain-free as possible.
Yep. You mentioned it briefly, and it's a topic I wasn't sure if I was gonna bring up because it can be a little controversial and people are a little all over the place with it, but hormone replacement therapy. Like, you have people who are, as soon as you say it, it's the worst thing ever, don't do it. You've got the other side who is like, "We're not gonna get through this phase without it." And then I think you have a lot of people in the middle who we don't have an opinion because we don't know enough about it. What do you think is important for women to understand to help them make that decision? Is that the right path for them or not?
I think number one, you've got to start with education, right? We've seen that new research is coming out. Old research has been debunked. We also know that what we were using in the past is not necessarily what we're using now. Medication has gotten better. Starting with education. Number one, do a little bit of research and make sure you're researching reputable sites, right? Really going into, don't go on TikTok to get your medical advice, but do a little research, talk to your girlfriends. What are they doing? Why did they choose HRT? Why did they not choose HRT? For some that have maybe a family history or they've dealt with breast cancer themselves, it might not be an option. there's different things out there. There's different research coming out. So have those conversations. I think that's one of the best things we can do is just learn from one another. Have those conversations and then make sure that your doctor is there to provide what you need, because there are still doctors that will not even talk about HRT because they have old information. And so we want to make sure that our doctor is up to date and that there's no bias, right? That this is a personal decision. They present to you the positives, the negatives with regard to your medical history, not somebody else's, not generic. And so it's having multiple conversations and definitely getting educated and figure out why is it that you want to be on HRT, right? Is it because you are addressing symptoms? Is it because it's a fad? Is it because you're scared of possibly getting, dementia or cardiovascular disease? Have those conversations and be real and honest about why it is that you want to do this. And so that you have a clear understanding of what is ultimately your objective, and then get those questions answered.
Yeah, that's a great point of why are you doing it? Not, I'm doing it because all my girlfriends are doing it, so it must be right for me. Like, what is that end goal? Similar to what path are you going to choose to get through this point of your life? Because what do you want on the other side of it?
And I talk to a lot of people because I am on HRT, so I will share my experience as to why I chose it, how it has helped me. And I have lots of clients that aren't on it and have no issues. I have other clients that were never offered it, so they've just kind of continued that path. But they do have specific symptoms that I'm like, I would still address the ones that you're struggling with that are affecting your daily life and start to have that conversation. Is this something that would help me if I started on HRT now? And it is not too late. I think that's one of the biggest things that we've been told is, one, when you start it, you're only on it for like 5 years. No, you can be on it for your entire life. And for most of us, I won't let me say most, for many of us, that is the way to go, right? And it's not, and then there's no late start, right? You can still start at a later age. And so even, my mom's in her 70s and she's had conversations, and I'm like, just ask about it because it is a possibility depending on what it is that you want and depending on what it is that you're trying to solve. And what we've also learned is the earlier you start HRT versus waiting until you are in menopause and your cycle has stopped, we know that starting in perimenopause is such a great benefit for so many women. So you don't have to wait to start either. And you don't have to say, oh, it's too late to get started.
Yeah, that's an important thing to know too, because I think a lot of times, so my only experience with the option to do HRT was I had very poor gut health. I had candida like you wouldn't believe, just multiple strands of yeast, no idea what's going on. And it was leading to things like hot flashes, night sweats, irritability, all kind of like those common, if you will, precursors to perimenopause. And when I would go to I didn't actually even go to my primary care. I went to an out of pocket doctor and we talked about this and had the lab work done. And to me, it's like, well, I can't be there yet because it's not time for that yet. Thankfully, it wasn't time for that yet. So we still have a couple more years. But the option was you can go on to these HRTs and we can fix your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone that way. Or you can take that more natural path and let's really dial in your nutrition and fix that gut health. For me, I was in the place of I have no idea what I should do here. And just knowing me being me, I'm like, well, let's try the natural approach first. Like, let's see if we can get this under control. But I think that's great information to know and helpful for me that if going this natural way either doesn't progress as quickly as I want, if you start that now, it's really going to just help set you up better off down the road instead of waiting till, holy shit, we have a real problem here.
Right.
And then trying to play catch up.
Well, and I think that's what's so important about educating ourselves now. I just spoke yesterday, and one of the girls that was there was 24. It was for menopause in the workplace, and so she was like, "I'm going to be in the room, but I'm only 24," and I'm like, "That's perfect, because now you are going to be able to be." Proactive versus reactive, which is what we are doing. So while it does not pertain to you now, knowing more about it, and just so that you can start to see right away, like, oh, something's a little off here, that is going to make a world of difference for you. But to go back to what you said, I think 100% women should always start with, we say natural, right? Quote unquote natural, because having those hormones in our body, that is natural. Like our body makes these hormones. So it's not unnatural to put the hormones back in. But I always tell people, start with lifestyle. Let's look at all of it. Let's look at your stress. Let's look at your sleep habits. Let's look at your nutrition, because that is a huge component for so many reasons why we're suffering from some of these symptoms. And maybe the symptom doesn't go away, but it definitely minimizes it. And let's look at your movement. And, and go from there first. Let's address these things and then see, how are you feeling now? And then what do we really need to focus on? Could it be a supplement that we just need to add that your doctor approves? Of course, we don't want to just start throwing spaghetti at the wall, but could it be a supplement, or is HRT a good option at this point? But yes, starting with lifestyle, I always say, is number one.
Yep. And going back to what, this is great conversation, because I have so many directions we're about to take this conversation. But the first one we're going to go to is your talk on menopause in the workplace. And as somebody who is an HR professional, or, as that was my career, we hear a lot about menopause as women as a health issue. But I will tell you, I have never had somebody come to me and say, I'm struggling with work because of menopause. Now that the seed's been planted, right, it's like, oh, it's only a matter of time. So I need to know, or needed to know, how to react to that. Why do you think now is the time where employers need to start paying attention to this?
Well, I think women are paying attention, right? All of a sudden, we're recognizing that we are actually going through this biological transition, and that it really is affecting us in so many ways. And so number one, how does it affect us in the workplace? I did a panel discussion, and I was talking about menopause in the workplace. And there was a man on the panel, and he says, now that you're saying it out loud, I recognize that my wife is going through menopause. Like, I see her struggling at home. She forgets things. She can't, recall words. She walks into a room. She can't remember why she's there. Her sleep is terrible. Her energy is terrible. He says, but I never realized that she took that to work with her. As if we just leave it at the door, right? Like, that would be lovely. And I'm thinking, duh. Like, as a woman, we take our periods with us every month. When we are pregnant, we take our little embryos are going with us everywhere we go until they come out. But of course, men don't think that way. And so that was like eye-opening, because I was like, oh, they don't get it, right? They just think that we can turn it off, because men are so good about being able to compartmentalize and turn things off, turn them back on when they need to. Well, we don't do that, and we can't do that, and our body is not allowing us to do that. And so how does menopause show up at work? It's basically how it shows up at home, right? All of a sudden, we are struggling with brain fog. Let's look at that one. So, but at work, what does that mean? Well, now all of a sudden, you have always been organized. Now you can't keep your calendar together. You've got Post-it notes everywhere because you can't remember things. You're in a meeting. Somebody asks you for, specific information that you were always able to recall, no problem. And now you cannot do that. And that's embarrassing. And it's also a little shocking, because you're like, what's going on? Why is my brain not working? And that's scary for a lot of people. So brain fog is one. We're struggling with sleep. So either we are suffering from not being able to fall asleep, not being able to stay asleep, night sweats are keeping us up, or incontinence is affecting us and our sleep quality is low. So now we're bringing that to the workplace, right? We're back to those days when we had an infant where you're just running on fumes. Well, of course, we're not going to be super productive when our sleep is garbage. Then when our sleep is bad, now we start to get these crazy cravings, which means we're eating bad, which is also going to affect our energy level. We also are struggling with hot flashes. Well, I don't want to go into a middle of a presentation and start, having this conversation, standing up at the top of the room. Everybody's looking at me and I get into a hot flash, and you're sweating, and, it's embarrassing again. And then you become the butt of the joke. And so all of these things start to go on top of each other, right? They just start to compound one after the other. And a lot of women don't want to address it. They don't want to talk about it because they don't want to be seen as less, or that their leadership skills are no longer there, or, all of a sudden that they just don't have it together anymore. And that's far from reality. And so it is so important that we have these conversations. So when I go in and I talk to whether it's HR, if I talk to leaders, or if I just talk to the women's groups, that they have at work or whatever. Number one, you got to figure out, how is it affecting you at work? And what are some accommodations that you could maybe put into play? And I know people don't want accommodations because they don't want special treatment, but it could be as simple as, can I have a fan at my desk? Can I carry a handheld fan? I know that seems dumb, but I want to be able to pull out a fan in the middle of a meeting and not be mocked or ridiculed, or even, I don't even want it noted. I just want that the fan is there as if I had pulled out my chapstick. Nobody bats an eye, right? That's what I want it to be. Just a normal thing, whatever. It just gets glossed over, right? Same thing. If we're going to have a meeting and you want me to be on top of what's going on in the meeting, how about you send me an agenda ahead of time so that I can make sure I've got everything lined up. The information I used to be able to recall freely, now I'm going to take notes. I'm going to have that in front of me. And that's an easy accommodation, right? Making sure that we can dress so that we can have layers, be comfortable. So maybe a little bit of flexibility. Not all places can do that if you wear a uniform or whatever. So it's really fitting what works for your business. The other thing I tell leaders is get educated, right? You don't have to know their medical history, and I don't have to give you my medical history, but I can mention to you, I'm going through this right now, and so I will still perform at my level. It's just going to look different than it has in the past, right?
Yep.
And so when leaders are informed and they just have a general idea of what menopause is and what it can possibly affect and how it affects you at the workplace, there's a little bit more grace. And instead of asking your female employees, hey, how are you feeling? Is everything okay? Of course, how are we going to respond? Everything's good. We're fine. We're good. Right? But if you ask your employee, how can I help you do your best work right now? They're going to have an answer for you. You know what? If we could have our big meetings in the morning when I'm more alert than in the afternoon at 3 o'clock when I'm tapped out, that would be wonderful. It could be easy as something like that. And so starting those conversations and just sitting down with your female employees, especially if they're in their 40s, 50s, these are great ones to have conversations with. And you don't have to make it awkward. It's just, how do we approach this? How can I make you the most successful you while you're going through this? Because what happens is, if they don't have that support, they get quiet, they shrink back. 1 out of 4 women will quit their job, and we get passed over for bonuses and raises and promotions because all of a sudden we're looked at as less than, versus let's have this conversation and let's figure out what's going on, and let's still keep you as productive as you've always been.
Yeah, because it's a two-way street, and not every place is going to look the same. Like you mentioned, dress code, for instance, if you wear a uniform. When you typically hear people talk about menopause, or really anything to do with women in the workplace, it's executives, you're in the C-suite corner office. In some cases, that is the case. But in many cases, and especially in today's world, that is not the case.
Yeah.
So why is it important that we recognize that menopause affects women at every level of an organization in every industry?
Yeah, it is. And that one's really hard. So, when I'm on LinkedIn, I talk a lot about menopause in the workplace, and it really is directed to that executive, that leadership, that, people that are in nice, comfy buildings. But we do have a lot of women in the workforce that are in teaching and nursing. And what about your waitresses or your stylist, or, your Amazon delivery person, or the person that works in the buildings packing up the boxes and stuff? We've got women everywhere that are pushing through daily. And so what does that look like for them, right? Again, it's number one, it's the women being educated, but also those departments being educated. How can they bring some education into that? I know as a teacher, like, getting a bathroom break is hard. You have a hot flash in the middle of a classroom. It's not like you can step out and like fan yourself off. Whether you have little kids or older kids, we can't leave those kids alone. And so it's really having that support group around you, having those teachers, being able to work with one another. Hey, I got to step out, or, I got to have an extra fan in my classroom, or whatever it is. It's just looking for ways of how we can support each other. But yes, there is a little bit more leniency and flexibility in some of those, executive roles, versus the everyday woman that is just trying to get through, right? We're just trying to make our money. We're just trying to get our paychecks. We're just trying to support our families. And so again, it goes back to how is this affecting you daily and how can we address those? And could it be something that you're doing before work, right? If I'm drinking 3 or 4 cups of coffee before I go to work, is that triggering my hot flash? Maybe that's something I need to adjust. So it's really just kind of looking at lifestyle, looking at patterns, and then looking at what flexibility do you have within your job. So I talk to women from all different areas, right, to try to figure out how they can work with that.
Yep.
And it is challenging. I mean, I'm not going to say it's easy at all, but again, going back to really looking at what is it that you need, and let's be
Yep.
honest about it. Don't say nothing because we know that's not true.
Yep. Just like when they ask, are you okay? You're not fine.
Right. Of course, we're
Like,
fine. We're
no.
fine.
And I think it's important too to remember if you're the woman being asked that, the person asking you, whether it's a man or woman, is likely as uncomfortable asking you that as you're about to be to answer it honestly. So let's make uncomfortable like an equal playing field and answer the question honestly.
Yeah. And I like to tell people, well, two things. Number one, communication is not complaining. You are not complaining. You are informing, and you are answering the questions that they asked you. You were providing communication, right? And that's okay. And yes, like you said, it is going to feel awkward for many of us. And a lot of women are afraid, what about if I say something and there's retaliation, or, I don't want to be the one that stands up. But when you are the one that stands up and does this, then you open the door for other women to be able to stand up and be able to say, you know what, that's me too. It's one of those things. Could you imagine just pulling your team aside and saying, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. Anybody else? And 4 other women say, oh my gosh, yes, 100%. And then you go to that team lead, man or woman, whoever it is, and say, hey, the 4 of us are noticing this pattern. This would help us be successful. I mean, you're not just solving the problem for one. Now we're addressing for many. So the more we talk about it and we stand up, the more it's going to allow other women to say, hey, me too.
Yep. And like you said, if you pulled your team together and asked and you had all those people come together, it's the same as when you sit in that room and you have that question, but you don't want to ask it because when you look around, nobody else has, chances are somebody else in that room has that same question.
Yeah.
Yep.
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 100%.
And do you find that with the interactions of people that you've met with in different industries, do you think it's a gender gap problem of this being understood as a workplace issue with typically more men being in leadership roles? Or do you feel it's equal men to women that we struggle with understanding that this is the new workplace? I don't want to call it an issue, but it's the new dynamic of a work.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I do feel we still have a lot of white middle-aged men in leadership that don't necessarily understand it. And of course, you're going to run into the ones that aren't going to be gracious about it, whether it's uncomfortable or they're just kind of, douchebags. Um, but but I do feel that even some women have a hard time addressing it in leadership.
Yep.
Uh, and so, yeah, that's a hard one because we do see those roles, is definitely a male dominated still at this point. But I think now that we are seeing it more, in movies and TV and commercials, I see hot flash commercials all the time. The more maybe women are opening up and talking to their partner and saying, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. And if women are doing that, that helps their partner understand. And if they even say, I bet some of the women in your office are struggling too, that would be amazing.
Yep.
But at least with them talking, that does kind of get the man to understand this is what women are dealing with. And hopefully they put the connection together. Like I said, that one gentleman, sweet as could be, executive level, hadn't put that connection together. But when we have those conversations, he's able to do that. So I think as women, if we start talking to our partners about this, but not just for ourselves, right? Like I'm constantly telling my husband, you gotta just excuse me because I'm in that, menopause rage, or I'm going to be crying, or I'm going to be sleeping, or, whatever it is. He's always trying to figure out what personality he's going to get, but also letting him know, hey, you know what? You work with a lot of women and they're probably dealing with the same thing. And so being able to have a little bit of grace and a little bit of flexibility. And so that's one of the best things we can do. Again, just paying it forward.
Yep. And like you said, have those conversations because having the conversation, it's not complaining.
Right.
That's a big stigma I think that needs to get broken is we are viewed still by society far too much of you've got to have it buttoned up together all the time. You're carrying a baby and a pot and a laundry basket and running the meeting because somebody's got to run it and of course it's going to be us. That's not reality.
Yeah, no.
And the sooner that we can get everybody to understand it, men, women, whether you're middle aged, early age, we are people too who will tell you we can do it all and be damned if we won't. But at some point, we've got to take a pause for ourselves and understand I need a timeout. I've got to shift my approach here and I need to be supported when I do that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a hard one for a lot of us. I
Yep.
mean, myself included. It is hard. And I think the other thing is men are so just designed to problem solve, and we have to remind them, we're not a problem to solve. We just need you to be informed. And I try to tell my husband that all the time is they always want like, how can I fix this for you? There's nothing to fix. I just need you to just be, just grace, just understanding of why I'm doing these things or acting these ways or feeling this way. It's not about you. I'm going through this transition. And it's the same thing. We need to have leaders understand we're not coming to you to fix anything. We're just informing you that things are just going to be a little bit different, but we are still the same woman with the same capabilities and the same skills and the same person that for 20 years has crushed this job, right? That doesn't mean that we're any less. It just looks different.
If there is, I'll say if, but I'm sure there is a woman listening to this. She is in perimenopause. She's feeling overwhelmed. She's going to go back to work on Monday. What is the best piece of advice you could give her if she could have that conversation with her leader, her employer, whatever that looks like?
Yeah. I think if she's going into work, having that conversation would be great. I would also encourage women to talk to their HR department. A lot of women don't understand that we are still covered through like the Family Act, just like you were covered with pregnancy and postpartum. As far as certain laws, there's not a specific menopause policy, but we do have policies in place that do protect our rights as females, just like we did when we were pregnant. And so, number one, talk to your HR department and see what policies are in place. Certain states are definitely ahead of the game. I know Rhode Island has already passed something. They're doing amazing work. We're here in Texas, so we would probably be like state number 49 to pass anything to help women's rights. But talk to your HR department. And also, I would also ask, is there a way, maybe we have a meeting, maybe we bring the women together in the office and we have these just an open conversation about it and see what does everybody need? What are they feeling? And then go to the leadership and say, hey, this is what your employees are struggling with. And even like a small company, you could go out to lunch with the 5 women that work there, kind of have a discussion, and then have somebody be the speaker and open up that conversation with, the managers or whoever that you're dealing with. And so it starts small, right? We don't have to jump right into things. But I think for any woman that is struggling with this and they are looking to advocate for themselves, figure out what is it you're struggling with, make a list, put pen to paper. Because when we see it, it is totally different than like, I'm fine. I'm just a little tired sometimes. Write it down. How often are you struggling with these things? What is the severity of them? And then what would make it better? If you could solve this problem, what would make it better? And start to kind of brainstorm, because when we go in with a problem but also some solutions, that's going to look so different than just going in and being like, oh my gosh, here's all my problems, right? Because they're just going to look at you like, oh my, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. But if we go in and start to have that conversation of these are some things that might help, increase productivity because I'm dealing with this. So have some ideas in mind, because that's going to direct the conversation so much more than you just dump something on their lap and be like, okay, now I don't know what we're supposed to do with this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, help me understand what it is
Yeah.
you're looking for, and then we can take those ideas and make an actual solution that's going to help.
Yeah, yeah. Let's put that into, like you just said, like, let's do an action plan. Let's figure this out. So, yeah, I would say I definitely encourage, though, people to talk to their HR department. The HR department might be one person.
Yep.
And you always, when I was teaching, you always make best friends with the ladies in the office, right? Because they know everything. They know how that school runs. They are
Yep.
the backbone. Same kind of thing, who is it in your office, talk to that HR person because they're the ones that really are going to give you the best guidance of how you were protected and how to move forward, what's okay to ask for.
Yep. And be the person, be that pioneer, right? If you're struggling with this right now and you can help set the stage for the girl in the office next to you when she gets there to be able to have an easier transition with this, you almost owe that to her to share that and help set that stage.
And yeah, we're setting up the next generation for better success. We're setting up our daughters so that they're not having to go through this as well. And it's just like nobody talked about pregnancy back in the day in the office. And now it's normal to see a woman at work pregnant until, she can't work anymore. And we should be able to go through this transition the same way, right? Supported, educated. The problem is, menopause is invisible, and that's why there's so much, we don't know. We don't know if a woman is struggling. I mean, we might see a hot flash, but as far as like brain fog or sleeplessness, we could see that she has a little bit less energy. But for the most part, menopause is invisible. And I think that's one of the hard ones for things. But being able to do this, like you said, paying it forward for the next generation, opening up those conversations is such a huge benefit for everyone.
Yep.
But it's gonna help us too, just feel better. We at this point, being in our 40s, our 50s, our 60s, if we're still working, we have so much wisdom and knowledge. Why would you want to lose that? How are you even going to replace that? It is expensive to replace those skills that you have been building for years and pouring time, money, and energy into for businesses. And so, how are you going to replace that? And that's some of the things we have to look at. So, if anything is driving it, maybe it's your bottom dollar. You're going to lose out on billions of dollars, right? That's what we're seeing. $1.6 billion loss of productivity because of women in menopause. And so maybe it's your bottom line that you want to address. Maybe you don't care about women and what they're feeling and you care about your pocketbook. Either way, it is affecting you. I promise you.
Yep. And with the accommodations that employers could make for women in the workplace, we for ourselves can do some of those things in our own lives. So, what are some of the highest impact lifestyle changes that would move the needle the most for, let's say, most women experiencing perimenopause?
Yeah, I would go to those four basics that I always talk about, which is sleep, stress, movement, and nutrition. So, number one, starting with nutrition. When you're going through perimenopause, it does change your microbiome, right? Your gut health is all of a sudden different. You're going to notice, I can't drink wine. I can't enjoy champagne anymore. Alcohol keeps me up, gives me headaches, whatever it is. All of a sudden, certain foods like make me super bloated, super tired. It just doesn't sit right anymore. And so, starting with nutrition, start to look for those patterns. What are you noticing? The big one that most people notice is the alcohol right away, or coffee, sweets, anything like that. And it's because our body cannot process sugars like it used to. So, you might notice pasta sauces, tomato sauces, sugary coffees, and all of a sudden your body cannot process those sugars. And so you're getting headaches, you're staying up all night when you used to not have to struggle with that. Number two, you've got to be moving your body. You've got to be moving your body for health, but you've got to be moving your body for mental health as well and reduce that stress. Daily walks are great. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I'm not a big person that's like, you've got to get those 10,000 steps in. Go out and enjoy the day, right?
Yep.
Put on your favorite song or songs, your favorite playlist, a book that you're listening to, and just get around the neighborhood. And if you want to go out longer, you go out longer, but at least start to get that moving going. If you are not strength training, I tell women you have to start strength training yesterday.
Yes.
That is going to be the ultimate key to having a high quality, long life. And then let's look at your sleep. Are you sleeping crappy because your sleep routine is crappy to begin with? Are you going to bed at midnight and getting up at 5 a.m.? We can't do that anymore. Are you scrolling before bed? We can't do that anymore, right? So we need to look at our sleep habits and adjust those to see if that will affect our sleep. Now, obviously, hormones are a big one that mess with our sleep, but let's at least do some positive things to set ourselves up for success. And then stress. This is probably one of the most stressful times in a lot of women's lives. The more I talk to women, they're like, oh my God, toddler years were easy compared to this. Launching adult children, aging parents, trying to figure out if you're ready to retire financially. There's all of these things all of a sudden piling up on us that we weren't necessarily ready for, and nobody told us about as we were growing up, right? Nobody prepared us. That whole financial element is like a whole nother Pandora's box.
Yep.
And so, we're struggling with a lot of stress. So what is it that we can do to kind of eliminate some of that stress? Is it pouring into your community, getting back with your girlfriends, finding a hobby, and just enjoying life, right? Get off of your phone and enjoy life.
Yes. I think that goes whether you're in perimenopause or not.
Right. So those are my four. Like that's where we start. And that is really going to make a huge difference. Just being able to maybe get outside and take a little afternoon walk, 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be anything crazy.
Yep.
And that you would be surprised what it does for your energy midday, what it does for your mental health, being out in the sunshine, clearing your mind versus just sitting, for a 10-minute break and scrolling through, doom scrolling.
Yep. Now, with strength training, I talk to a lot of women. I coach different women, and as soon as I bring up strength training, I always hear, and I'll have the conversation as many times as I have to. Well, I don't want to get bulky. It's like, well, we're not going to set your training phase up that way. What is it that women really need to understand that strength training really means to the success of their health?
Yeah. We do not eat right to bulk. Let's be honest.
Yep.
I mean, it's show me somebody that has strength trained that has not purposely gone out of their way with supplements or very honed in nutrition that is just bulking out of nowhere, right? So that is, and I think that goes back to the old days, Cosmo, and we would do step aerobics and things like that, but no one ever told us to pick up weights, or they were those cute little 5 dumbbells and you just kind of threw them around a little. So we need to change our mindset of strength training and understand strength training is really about having a high quality life in the sense of preserving our muscle. We know now having stronger legs decreases our risk for dementia, which is the craziest thing. We know that strength training is helping with our heart. Cardio, yes, we love cardio. That's great. Of course, that's great for our heart health. But we also know that strength training is great for our heart. We know that it's going to help with bone so that we're not losing bones, we're not breaking bones. I don't think people understand the impact of breaking a hip. I mean, how many people pass away from breaking a hip? And it sounds funny, like, oh, I don't want to fall down and break a hip. But really, that is a death sentence for so many women. And it's because we are frail. It's because we didn't prioritize strength training back in the day. And so it's not about getting big. It's about building muscles, not muscle. I promise you're not going to be out there like ripped like He-Man. It's just having the muscles that help us get ourselves off the couch, that help us be able to lift and pull and, move freely. And so, yeah, we have to really go in and change the way we address strength training as far as mindset. And there's so many great women out there leading that way. Like one of my favorite is Dr. Vonda Wright. And she's always talking about the benefits of strength training. And again, it has nothing to do with aesthetics, though you do look good when you have muscle, but it's all about just being able to have that high quality, independent life.
Yeah. Preserve that muscle. If bulking really is your goal, we can certainly make that happen. But
yeah. Oh, and it's not easy.
Exactly, right? It's going to be harder to do that than just preserve your muscle. And like you said, being able to get up off the couch. How many times?
Yeah.
Now, granted, groaning when you get up off the couch because like you're tired or you're sore is very different, but it goes right back to living that independent life. You want to be able to move around freely, or do you want to have to rely on a person or a walker or, whatever that might look like?
Yeah. And I always tell people, start out slow. Start out with somebody that knows what they're doing, right? So talk to somebody at the gym, Maybe talk to a girlfriend that's already been doing this, whatever it is, but don't just jump in with, not knowing enough, because obviously quality form is really what's going to make the whole process better. That's where you're going to see the results. And then start off nice and easy and then slowly increase. I think this is a big one because I run a strength training group and I have about 45 women that come out to me, and we all were taught, to use 8-pound, 10-pound dumbbells. We do 20 reps of these. And so I'm like, okay, you guys are going to use like 25-pound dumbbells, but you're only going to do 4 reps or 6 reps.
Yep.
And it is so challenging for women to be like, I'm only doing 6, but then I'm not doing anything. I promise you, with 20-pound dumbbells, with 10-pound dumbbells, as you're starting to increase, right? Whatever is challenging for you at the moment, I promise you, 6 reps, you are going to feel it. You're going to feel good. It's going to help you build the muscles. And so that's another one, is understanding we have to be lifting heavy. And everybody freaks out. Do I have to be lifting like 150-pound barbell? Not unless you want to. Like if you want to do that and you want to go join a CrossFit or whatever and you feel great, go do that. But start off small and then slowly increase. And it's not about the reps, it's about the weights and the quality. And so that's a big one for women to wrap their mind around.
And primarily, and like not hating on men here, but most of what you find is strength training designed by men for men that you as a woman start to do, and it's not either effective or sustainable, or quite frankly, it's too hard. So you have to do it. There's a method to the madness.
Yeah, no, there really is. And it's important that you're hiring somebody that understands this season. And so when I left teaching, I started working for a boot camp company and I loved it. And then I started going through perimenopause and I was like, holy shit, like I can't do these workouts anymore. Like I am struggling. My body is breaking down. I'm injuring myself, my recovery. Like I need 4 days to recover from these workouts. And so when I was telling the guys that I was working with, and of course, all the men that I were working with were like in their early 20s, training everybody that came there, like they were going to go run a Spartan that weekend. And I'm like, we need to start thinking about training our middle-aged women population a little bit differently because I'm noticing how it's affecting me. And I'm in great shape at this point in my life, right? And they said, well, if you want to do like grandma workouts, you could do that yourself, but nobody's going to go to your classes. So I was like, all right, well, okay. So I quit and opened my own business. And I was like, all right, well, now I'm going to do some grandma workouts. But believe me, they are not grandma workouts. They're very intentional. And that's really what it is. We're very intentional with the movement that we do. We're intentional with the amount of reps, the weights that we choose, and our recovery. And that is one of the big things, is understanding that what worked in your 20s and 30s and felt great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, when I was in my early 40s doing these boot camp workouts, I was in heaven. I'm like, this is the best I've ever felt. And then it was like, I just ran into a door. I was like, oh my God, I can't do these anymore. And it's just about evolving and really giving your body what it needs now. And that's okay to taper it back. Again, it's just like everything else. It's going to look different. That doesn't mean it's less effective. I feel great now, but I had to take the time to learn what my body needed.
Right. If you were still grinding through those boot camp workouts,
oh yeah,
you'd like to be exhausted, miserable,
injured,
and then probably eventually just stop because you're like, this isn't sustainable.
100%. Yeah. Why would I want to keep showing up? No. And that's the thing, is you have to find something that you want to show up for, and it's blessing your body. Yeah. I mean, there's days that you're going to be a little sore, maybe a little fatigued, but that doesn't mean that we're breaking it down. There's a big difference between, being sore and being injured.
Yep, exactly. What is one message that you want every woman to take away from this episode that could completely change how she's going to view this season of her life?
I would say get informed. And there's so many ways to get informed. Podcasts, those are great. There's so many books now. Like I said, when I started researching 8-9 years ago, I, found 4 or 5 books, and I could go to Barnes and Noble now, right? And there's so many books on midlife and menopause and perimenopause and the different stages and menopause nutrition and thyroid and this, that, and the other thing. And so get educated, right? Number one. Start to have conversations. Pour into your sisters and your community and your best friend and your mom and your aunt, and just start having these conversations. Learn more about what are other women experiencing, what's helping them feel good, what are they struggling with. And again, I could get something from the person that works next to me, and she says X, Y, and Z has been a godsend to her menopause journey, and maybe that doesn't work for me, but it at least gives me education. I can take that to my doctor and say, is this a possibility? Is this something that might work for me with my lifestyle, my medical history? And so the more information we have, the better. So I always, if you're going to advocate for yourself, you've got to be educated and you've got to start tracking your symptoms, right? Once you go into a doctor and say, these are the symptoms I'm struggling with, this is the severity, this is how often, this is what I want to solve, they can't gaslight you. And if they do, then that that's not the person for you. So when I was starting to go through this and I was starting to coach women and I was starting to talk to women, and they would come back and they'd be like, yeah, my doctor totally was like, no, it's fine. Don't worry about that, blah, blah, blah. One, it's very important that we're very specific, right? We just don't go in and say, well, I feel a little tired. If I go in and say, here's my past month of sleep schedule, right? This is how many times I'm waking up. This is how many times this is the number of hours of sleep I'm getting. When we're very specific, they can't dismiss that. And so I created a wellness tracking journal for women in perimenopause because I was like, listen, just like in business, if we don't track things, we don't know what's working and what's not working. And so why are we not doing that with our health? We would do it for our kids. Hey, my kid, they ate this food, they've thrown up this many times, or they get a fever every time this happens, or every time we do X, Y, and Z, they get a rash, right? We advocate for our kids. We know the information. Why do we not do that for our own health? And so creating that tracker was one way to help women do that. But again, you could do it on your phone. You could do it on a piece of paper. You don't have to have a fancy tracker, but it does have a lot of information. So when we talk about the education component, that's in there too. But the more you know about your body, the more they can't dismiss you. So education, education, education.
Awesome. And we'll put a link for your tracker in the show notes as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's on Amazon. You can literally get it tomorrow.
Perfect. Next day delivery. Karen, we dove into a lot of great stuff today. And one thing I love to do with my guests at the end is just a couple rapid fire questions to leave our listeners with. So, ready? Start your timer.
I'm ready.
What is one menopause myth that you would love to bust forever?
That it is your downfall. It is your caterpillar to butterfly moment.
I love it. What is probably the most overlooked symptom when it comes to perimenopause for women?
I would say how much it messes with our mood as far as just not feeling it or just being sad all of a sudden. I'm constantly crying. I'm not a crier. Yeah, mood.
Awesome.
And anger.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm not just being a bitch. I swear.
Right. I'm so angry at everybody. Driving now is just ridiculous. I'm like, was I always this angry as a driver?
Is it the heat? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. What happened to me?
Right. Perimenopause. Welcome to the show.
Yes.
What is one thing every woman should know before her perimenopause journey begins?
You are 99% in control of this. I'd love to say 100, but yes, our body does have a little bit of say in it, but there is so much we can do, right? Whether it's through lifestyle or just self-advocacy. You do have control. So don't feel like you don't.
And then this is a fun one. Fill in the blank. Menopause is
a wild ride.
I like it.
Yeah. I mean, it can be super freeing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, one of my favorite things is being like, I don't care anymore. Right?
Yep.
Like, I'm going to wear this outfit. I'm going to wear this hairdo. I don't need to please the masses anymore. I'm going to bird watch because I love it now. And I don't care what judgment comes to me.
Yep. Awesome. So, Karen, how can our listeners connect with you if they want to learn more, talk to you, work with you?
Yes, there's so many ways. You can, if you go on Instagram, midlife_health_coach, I really talk a lot. My Instagram is really about just self advocacy. How do I advocate for myself with my partner, my doctor, at work, all of that great stuff. So you can find me there, lots of great content. You can find me on my website, which is midlifehealthcoach.com. I've got a ton of free resources there, a lot of blogs that you can, look at that range from all kinds of topics, from sexual wellness to nutrition to just dealing with aging parents, dealing with becoming grandparents. Wow, that's a whole nother journey that I wasn't ready for. It's amazing, but it's also like new boundaries. But tons of resources on there as well. You can find me on YouTube for lots of videos, as well as my TEDx is on there, but I have a lot of short videos on just quick self-advocacy tips. My book is on Amazon. If you are in HR or you want your HR to know more about it, all of my LinkedIn is about menopause in the workplace. And I do speak to companies, either virtually or in person. I do wellness summits. I do chamber events. So if you want to have me speak, you can have me speak virtually or in person. And then another option, I get a lot of women that don't really want necessarily or need a health coach. They just need a couple answers. And so I do have a link where you can book time with me. We can go through your symptoms. We can go through possible labs that you might want to request.
Yep.
We can go through questions you want to ask at your doctor. And then what do you want to solve, so that we are directing everything towards that? We create an action plan and you are prepared for your next doctor's visit. And that's probably one that's most important to people, is they just feel more confident going in with a plan.
Great. Well, we will link all that down in our show
Thank
notes so
you.
people can connect with you, check you out, follow you. And thank you again so much for taking the time to come on. This is a conversation that needed to be had. There's so much more we could talk about, likely will talk about, but just thank you again for taking the time. Thank you for our listeners, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.